that there will come a time when black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves. Then the black man will think like a black man, and he will feel for other black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together. And then at that point, you'll have a situation where when you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together. And this type of thinking also will bring an end to the brutality inflicted upon black people by white people. And it is the only thing that will bring an end to it.
The richest man to ever live was black. Let's get one thing clear up front. The richest human being to ever live wasn't Elon Musk, wasn't Jeff Bezos, wasn't some oil tycoon or European king on a coin. It was a black Muslim king from West Africa. His name was Mansa Musa, and history has been real quiet about him on purpose. So sit down, because once you know his story, you're going to wonder why they've been hiding it from you your whole life. Who was he? Mansa Musa was born in 1280 into the Keita dynasty, which ruled over the Mali Empire, a massive African empire that stretched across what is now Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, and even parts of Nigeria. He wasn't just born into wealth, he expanded it. When his brother went missing on a spiritual voyage, Musa took the throne, but instead of just chilling in gold-covered robes, Mansa Musa built an empire that was smarter, richer, and more stable than almost any nation in Europe at the time. The Mali Empire had functioning governments, tax systems, military infrastructure, universities, and a trading economy that was the envy of the medieval world. We're talking about a king whose empire produced more than half of the world's gold supply. Half. And he used it to build libraries and mosques, not luxury yachts and sports teams. The money, how rich was he? Let's do the math. Adjusted for inflation, Mansa Musa would be worth over $400 billion today. Some estimates go higher, but we're talking buy your favorite company 5 times and still have lunch money rich. He had so much gold that when he traveled to Cairo on his famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he brought along 60,000 people, including soldiers, slaves, and entertainers, and 80 camels, each carrying up to 300 pounds of gold. He gave away so much gold in Egypt that he devalued their currency and caused a 12-year economic crisis. Imagine pulling up to a country, dropping off some gold, and walking away while they scramble to fix the economy, just because you were generous. That wasn't a flex. That was just how he moved. The politics, he built an educated black nation. Mansa Musa wasn't a hoarder, he was a builder. He used his wealth to turn Timbuktu into one of the most important intellectual hubs in the world. Let me say that again for the folks in the back. Timbuktu, the city they turned into a joke in cartoons, used to be one of the most advanced education systems on earth. Mansa Musa built the University of Sankore, libraries that housed tens of thousands of handwritten manuscripts on math, astronomy, law, medicine, philosophy, and theology. While Europe was still debating whether bathing was demonic, black scholars in Mali were writing books, debating ideas and mapping the stars. Musa paid professors, brought in architects, imported books, and gave scholars land to continue their work. That's what leadership looks like. The erasure. Why you never heard of him. Now here's where it gets real. Why don't they teach you about him? Because Mansa Musa messes up the narrative. If people knew that one of the richest, smartest, most generous rulers in history was a black African Muslim, it would destroy the myth that Africa was uncivilized until Europeans showed up. It would crack the lie that black leadership has always been reactive, not visionary. It would wreck the colonial sales pitch that Africa had no greatness before chains. And guess what? When European powers finally started carving up Africa in the 1800s, guess which empire's legacy they wiped off the map first? Mali. Timbuktu's libraries were raided, mosques were bombed or converted, Ancient manuscripts were burned or stolen. Even maps of Africa shrunk West Africa and erased Musa entirely. Because if kids in New York or London knew that black kings were building universities before Shakespeare was born, somebody would start asking questions. Modern comparison. Imagine if Mansa Musa had a Twitter account today. When Dolflex Musa, 60K deep headed to Mecca, Cairo's economy won't survive this. Built 3 libraries, 4 mosques, and a school this week. You, still richer than your top 5 combined. A black man who gave more than he took. Let that sink in. Wealth equal to education, plus infrastructure, plus faith, plus legacy. Now compare that to modern billionaires. They got rockets, apps, and lawsuits. Mansa Musa had gold, scholars, soldiers, and vision. They gave us subscriptions. He gave the world institutions. The legacy, what we lost and what we remember. Mansa Musa's wealth didn't survive the centuries, but his impact did. Even today, there are surviving manuscripts from Timbuktu being protected by locals from extremists and war. There are mosques still standing that were built under his reign. There are children in Mali who still carry stories of his journey. And every time a black child learns that Africa had kings, queens, universities, and economies before colonialism, that's Mansa Musa whispering through history. They tried to erase me, but I was too golden to forget. Tag somebody who needs to know this. Tag someone who thinks wealth equals power. And tag every teacher who skipped this chapter in your history book. Or because black excellence didn't start with sports or music, it started with Mansa Musa. And it's about time the world remembered.
When people talk about the richest man in history, who do they usually name? Rockefeller, Bezos, Musk. But the richest being to ever live is someone who a lot of people have never heard of. A black emperor from West Africa in the 1300s. And he was so wealthy that one journey across North Africa crashed the price of gold for 12 years. His name was Mansa Musa. And the story of how that happened starts with the empire that he ruled. Musa ruled the Mali Empire from 1312 to 1337. Mali at that time wasn't just some small kingdom that people barely knew about. It was one of the most powerful empires on earth. Territory larger than Western Europe, sitting directly on top of the trade routes that moved gold, salt, ivory, and copper across Africa and into the Mediterranean world. Which meant one thing: gold. An unbelievable amount of it. Now, before we go any further, y'all know how I get down. I have to tell you the whole truth, the honest truth. Mansa Musa enslaved people. His caravan to Mecca reportedly included thousands of enslaved people. And early in his reign, there were raids meant to capture people. That's part of the story. It is. But the slavery that existed in the medieval world, in Europe, Arabia, Asia, and Africa, was not the same institution that would later be built on the bodies of our ancestors in the Atlantic world. Pre-transatlantic slavery was not race-based, and it wasn't structured as a permanent hereditary system that later defined the transatlantic slave trade. That doesn't make it moral, but historically, it was different. The transatlantic system introduced something new, the idea that blackness itself justified permanent enslavement. That was not Musa's world. That was the world that came later. So yeah, he did rule in a society that practiced slavery, but he was also the man that would go on to build libraries, universities, and one of the greatest centers of learning the medieval world had ever seen. And the moment that made him famous happened in 1324. That's when Musa decided to make the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and he didn't travel quietly. His caravan included tens of thousands of people, soldiers, servants, scholars, architects, poets, and about 100 camels, each carrying hundreds of pounds of gold. And everywhere they stopped, Musa gave it away. To the poor, to merchants, to officials. And when he arrived in Cairo, something extraordinary happened. The historian Al-Amari later recorded that Musa distributed so much gold in the city that the value of gold collapsed across Egypt, and it didn't recover for more than a decade. Think about that. One man traveled through a region and shifted the price of gold for 12 years. But the most important part of this story happens after he goes home, because Musa didn't hoard his wealth. He started building mosques, libraries, schools. He brought architects from Cairo and Andalusia to Mali. In 1327, he commissioned the Jean Berger Mosque in Timbuktu. It's still standing today. several hundred years later. And under Musa's rule, Timbuktu became one of the greatest intellectual centers of the medieval world. Students came from across the continent, libraries filled with hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. At its height, the city held around 25,000 students. And in Timbuktu, the most valuable thing in the marketplace wasn't gold. It was books. The richest man in the world didn't build a private island. He built a city of learning. And that's the part of history that feels strange when you compare it to modern-day wealth, because now we're used to billionaires telling us they're going to change the world, while their workers still rely on food stamps. We're told that extreme wealth is proof of innovation, proof of genius, proof of success. Really. But historically, wealth often came with obligation. In Islamic tradition, it's called zakat, the idea that a portion of your wealth belongs to the people around you. So when Mansa Musa held unimaginable wealth, he built institutions, schools, libraries, public buildings that are still standing 700 years later. Meanwhile, today, the richest men on Earth launch rockets into space, buy social media platforms and call it progress. Two very different ideas of what wealth is for. Mansa Musa died somewhere around 1337, but his reputation spread far beyond Mali. Now, here's the question that always gets me. If people in Europe knew exactly who this man was in the 1300s, how did his name disappear from our classrooms? Because in 1375, European cartographers created one of the most famous maps of the medieval world, the Catalan Atlas. And right there in West Africa, they drew a king sitting on a throne, holding a piece of gold in his hand. That king was Mansa Musa. They knew exactly who he was. But somehow, most classrooms over here, anyway, still don't teach his name. We learn about the Medici, the robber barons, the modern billionaires. Like that's the only version of wealth that ever existed. But history says otherwise because once upon a time, the richest man in the world didn't build rockets. He built libraries. Say his name. King Mansa Musa.
Okay, I want to take a second and talk about the use of the phrase black excellence because it's been coming up in my comments so much. When someone says black excellence, it's used to refer to the success of someone that's black in a space that's traditionally not been open to black people. So for example, as late as 1959, African Americans were turned away from medical school simply because of their race. That's only 60 years. That could be your parents' or your grandparents' generation. Even today, the number of black physicians is less than 6%, compared to 15% of the US population. That means that there's still barriers for students of color wanting to enter into STEM careers. Black excellence is not excellence because you're black. It's succeeding in spite of the fact that historically, these spaces have kept black people out of them. And it's important to highlight black excellence so that people who have often not seen themselves in these spaces realize that they belong there too, and we can begin to change the narrative.
So guys, black excellence is not a topic that many white people like to interact with. It's not something that they like to even engage in because their system has taught them different things about black people, and that is what they like the black people to believe, that black people are incapable of doing countless things. They have made a system, and in their books, in their minds, in their thought process, black people are not capable of a lot of things. And if there is something more useless in this world, then maybe black people are just close to that. Now, why I would say that is because if you talked to a white person and asked them a question as simple as, what do you think black people invented, in the old days, and or what they are inventing right now, something useful for that case. We have done in the video in the past, and there was this white lady that actually said that the most important thing that black people have invented was twerking and being loud, speaking loud. That is the invention of black people. There was a gentleman, a that's not a gentleman, a white man, that said that the most important thing that black people invented was peanut butter. And from that you get the perspective, you get the idea that these people have, the notion that they have grown in, and the information that they have been taught for a very long time that black people are worth nothing and that black people are capable of nothing good. And so they have believed this thing, they have made it part of them, in their thought process. They don't have to think much because that is exactly the information that they have. Whether they go to schools, that is what they will be taught. Whether they go to the white churches, that is what they are being taught. Now, one thing that really annoys me about this racism thing is the fact that racism is even in churches. I have done videos of pastors, preachers that are actually talking about they do not want black people in their churches. That is as far as it goes. So when you're talking about racism and some of you come over here to say that we do not need to be talking about it as often as we do because racism ended, because racism does not matter anymore, that black people now have same opportunities, they don't. And that is exactly why we will keep talking about these things until there's change. Yeah, now that is as far as it goes. There's racism in church, and you are not allowed to love Jesus if you're black. Yeah, the irony. So what was I even saying? I was talking about black inventions. White people have been taught that black people are incapable of success, they are incapable of excellence, and that is what they have believed over the ages, and that is what is true to them. Yeah, if you ask them randomly, that is exactly how they think of black people. And they have had discussions of eliminating some bit of population of black people because they think that black people are useless in this continent, in this world. They're not doing anything significant, anything important, so their population should be cut into half and one half should be eliminated. Those are the kind of people that we're discussing when you're talking about racism. Someone that can actually sit down, call a whole group of people, a whole boardroom, and discuss such a thing. Yeah. Now, when black people outshine a white person, it is a shock. It gets them as a shock. It gets them as something that should not be happening and not actually allowed. Why is a white person being beaten by a black person? Why is a black person succeeding? Who is allowing that? Why are they, like being allowed to even take part in something that will make the black person outshine the white person? It is not allowed in their books, in their thoughts, in their dreams, wildest dreams. A black person should never come anywhere close to a white person, and leave alone being beaten by a black person. Doesn't happen, should not happen. Yeah. Now, we have talked countless times about black excellence, and we have used Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and many other black people that have done things that are exemplary, things that are, out of the ordinary, and they're black people, and that is usually a pride for many black people. Now, to think that the richest man in the world, the richest man to ever exist in the world is a black man, is very uncomfortable for most white people. Very, very uncomfortable, because that does not sit right with them. They want to, think of it in the manner that, that kind of excellence is only for white people. Why would a black person be in that position? Why? If they had an opportunity, they would block that as much as they can. And if they cannot, they just wipe out that kind of information so that black people do not have access to that information. What makes me very sad is the fact that there are many things that black people have done in this world that are very, very extraordinary and beautiful, and they have helped this world to be what it is. But white people, because they have access to that information, they make sure that they control the system in such a manner that that kind of information will never reach black people. We have a lot of black kids that if you ask them about black inventions, they have zero idea, and that is just as bad as it is. Yeah, if black people are denied their own history, if they are denied to know the good things that their forefathers have done, their ancestors have done for America and for the world, then that should tell you that they just basically have access to only information that is comfortable for the white man. And as you know, the white people, they cannot allow information that will put them in some bad situations in the coming days. So definitely they will hide all the good things that black people have done, and even these inventions that we are talking about here, and the ones that you actually can like hold and say this is from a black person, trust me, we don't know half of it, because they cannot allow, I'm sure they cannot allow the black people have access to that kind of information, because they know even with the little that they have allowed black people to know, they still work on it. You know, black people are always like, you know, it boosts their esteem and it makes them do even greater things. So they cannot allow black people to have access to the best of best. Yeah, for example, we're not talking about the richest man to ever exist on the face of the earth was a black man. How do you think they can teach that in their history, in the history in America? They cannot teach that, because that will make the black kids in the class to feel good about themselves, you know, boost their esteem and make them dream. Yeah, if there is something that someone can do to you and hurt you the most is fail to give you a chance to dream. You know, if someone denies you a chance to even dream, you know, dreaming is supposed to be free, dreaming is supposed to be allowed for everyone, and if someone cannot allow you to dream, then they have killed you. Basically, that is how I look at it. Because if you allowed a child to see the important things that black people before him have done, then this child is going to be in a position where they look at themselves as capable, they look at themselves as worthy, they look at themselves as, you know, if I work this hard, I'm going to be like so and so, and this is going to help the world in 1 to 3 ways. I want to be like, you know, that is you dreaming, that is kids dreaming. Now they make sure that they attack the most vulnerable, which are kids. So once they have made sure that the esteem of black kids is tampered with, these kids grow up knowing that they, you know, their mentality is limited. They know that they are limited because all the things that are good have been invented by white people. So if you're not white, you are most definitely not going to make it in this life, and if you do, it's not going to be as massive. Yeah, that is the kind of ideology that they work around. And once black people realize that, they're going to teach the black kids their history, they're going to do a lot of research on these kind of things that we're talking about. They're going to have their kids have access to videos such as this to show them that they're capable and they're not limited. They can work as hard as they wish and they can become whatever they want to be in life. Now guys, if you're watching me for the first time, never been on this channel, never seen this face before, my name is Furaha and I'm so happy to have you on my channel today. I hope that you're keeping safe from wherever you're watching me from. Returning subscribers, thank you so much guys for the mad support. Thank you for being there for me, for sharing my videos, liking them, leaving a thumbs up, leaving a super thanks. Guys, I really appreciate each and every one of you for that, and I wish I could call out your names for the ones that I see every single day on my videos, leaving a comment on each video that they watch. I really appreciate you and it makes me so happy. It's very encouraging that you are doing that. It makes me have the, you know, the energy to even make another video and another and another. So guys, I hope that you're also keeping safe from wherever you're watching me from. I hope that things are good where you are. Tough times, tough decisions, tough love, you know, a lot of things are going down in ways that you would not have wanted them to, but let's keep hopeful that things will be different, things will change, things will become better, and it will be a different America than it is right now, and things will fall in place as we as time goes. Yeah, so I will see you on my next video guys. Bye for now.